Thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. A Glimpse of the Kingdom can remain free because of generous donors like you. If you'd like to donate, feel free to do so online, or you can send payments through Facebook Messenger. Don't forget to tell your friends about it so that they can enjoy this ministry as well. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any podcasts.
You can listen to my daddy every single day, like in the gym, in the car, or just at home. Glimpse of the Kingdom is awesome!
So we got a few more weeks. This is great. Let me go back. We're on your handout is page 2 at the top. We finished up last week on divine command theory. Now just remind you, we're discussing what's called moral ontology. Doesn't really matter if you memorize that. It's pretty cool though. All that means is, if someone says, where does morality come from? If something is good based on what? Or, philosophically, we'd say, what's the grounding? It's like saying, you turn left, then turn right. Say left compared to what? All directions have to have what? Some kind of standard, something in the middle before we turn left or right. You look at me kind of crazy. You get that logic. Same in morality. If something's right or wrong, based on what standard? And there are different answers given. And I gave through the major ones. Some say morality comes from the scientific method. I think that's very problematic and silly. Some say naturalism. That's the most common one. I think that's also false. Some say evolution is where morality comes from. I think that's false. I gave you all the reasons for that. Platonism, I also think that's false. And we ended up on divine command theory. I am a divine command theorist. We talked about 2 kinds of divine command theory. That's in your handout, top page 2. Some say moral values come from his will. That's called voluntarism. Others say it comes from his character. Everybody will always respond, yeah, David, what about old Euthyphro? I'm just repeating this. Plato had a dialogue with Euthyphro, where Euthyphro is a student talking to Socrates, is very, very old. He says, is it pious because the gods will it, or the gods will it because it's pious? So is it good because he wants it, or does he pick that moral value because it's already good? So I drew a little picture here. So we're asking, where does good come from? Where does the good, where does a moral value come from? Let's assume there's a God. Well, is good already out there and God picks it? Like it's kind of out there somewhere in the universe? Well, if that's true, then it sounds like good is above and beyond God. Like I gave the analogy of like a good apple from a tree that's already existing. He gets to, ooh, that's a good one, let's pick that one. The problem with that is that's not how people understand morality. Secondly, that means good is not grounded in God, which means divine command theory would be false. And thirdly, it means that is not the typical theistic understanding of God. Throughout history, everyone believes God is the highest moral good, so there can't be a moral standard above him. So that's problematic. If you say the good comes from a God's will, God's commandment, sometimes called God's fiat, God's fiat, his commandment. If that's where you think the good comes from, then it sounds like it's arbitrary. Because maybe tomorrow God wills that you rape people, and the next day God wills that you save people, and then God wills. And so both seem to be, they are problematic if you're a voluntarist, and I'm not. The third option is there is no dilemma at all. In fact, I would say that we might call an essentialist, that the good comes from God's character. That's where moral values come from. His very nature. He is the ruler. He is the standard. He is true north. Therefore, whatever he wills is good. Whatever he commands is good. So the way we've been talking about it is moral values come from his character. What's a value? Give me an example of a value. A moral value. Honesty, good. Honesty, integrity, loyalty, moral values come from his character. And then moral duties come from what he commands. Go do that, that's right or wrong. Values are good and bad. Well, David, couldn't his character have been something else? Arbitrary? He could have been an evil God who likes to kill babies. The response to that is, no, he can't, because you must understand the nature of God himself. God cannot be, as the greatest conceivable being, he cannot be someone who is different. It's a logical impossibility. It's like asking, Well, say he's a bachelor. Well, he could be married. No, can't be. By definition, that's the definition of bachelor. The other thing I'd say is, if God had a character of what we would call evil, evil is just a corruption of a good, some kind of moral value. It's a corruption of that. So the question I'm asked is, well, okay, that's evil, then where did that good come from? Where's the standard of evil and right? Whoever that being is, we'll call that being God. At some point, you got to stop at the very top and say, at some point, there is a standard. At some point. And I'm just going straight to the some point and saying there is God. So I think God's moral values come from God's character and his duties. So, for example, if someone says, Chelsea, is it good to be honest? And I think Chelsea would say, in general, the answer is yes. And someone says, but where does the honesty come from? Why is that a moral value? Why is that moral value? And this doesn't have to be your view. You can have any view you want. Any wrong view. I'm just kidding. That's just a joke. You can have any view you want. My view, and the one I'm presenting here, I find the most compelling. And also, this is standard Christian fare and Christian philosophy. The answer is, where does honesty come from? Why is honesty good? Because God is honest. Is it good to be loyal? Is that a moral value? Yeah, it is. Why is that a good thing? Where is that based off of? God himself. God is loyal. Is it good? You see, down the list it goes. Why are those things good? Because they're based on God's moral character. They flow out of him. But how do I know what value to pick in the moment? Like the C.S. Lewis analogy where these values or instincts are the keys on a keyboard. The moral law, his commandment, will, be up, tells us which note to push. That's the duty in the moment. And that'll make a lot more sense later on. So, I'll stop there. If you're a voluntarist, it is a dilemma. I'm not a voluntarist, I'm a essentialist. I think God's character is the source of all moral values. And his commandments are the source of moral duties. And then I said, at the end of last week, I see no reason whatsoever, in fact, I have biblical evidence to the contrary, that God issues commands to himself. That is to say, God does not have the same moral duties you and I have. Some things are the same. You'll know God's moral duty because he'll say it. He'll meet the Israelites and say, I'll be your God, you'll be my people. I will do X, Y, Z. I will protect you here. I'm going to get rescued from the Babylon. And guess what? Those are moral duties now. He's commanded it, as it were. This is going to happen. And he does it. But his moral duties are not the same as yours and mine. And I gave a bunch of analogies. I said, if I had someone else's children, I love their children. I'm going to take care of their children. But in general, I'm not morally responsible for someone else's kids. I'm responsible for my own children. That is, our moral duties are different. If someone saw me slashing my truck's tires, you might think I'm silly, but if I'm doing my neighbor's tires, now I'm evil. That is, have different moral duties depending on the relationship to the thing or the person. We do that all the time. We get it. I'm saying it's the same thing with God. But in the analogy, we and all the universe, let this sink in, please, is God's truck. Everything is God's truck. You are, I am, this planet, this building, the glasses you're wearing, the jacket you put on tonight, it's all his. Period. So how dare God kill someone? Well, first let's see if God killed him, but easy. How dare David slash his own truck's tires? That's a silly question. The assumption is when people get ticked off is they think it wasn't God's right to do it because they think God is trespassing on someone else's vehicle. That's a false understanding of the Christian worldview. It's a false understanding. The Christian worldview, we are all God's truck, and he does not have any moral duty or responsibility to make sure you and I are fat and happy and live 153 years. There's no moral duty for that. We're not told to enact vengeance and things like that, but he's not told not to enact vengeance. In fact, he says, vengeance is mine, declares the Lord. That's my moral duty, not your moral duty. So stop trying to be me. Stop doing that. That's why we're not told to judge people or condemn them to hell, because you can't. That's my moral duty, not your moral duty. And that's what gets messed up. And so then some people brought up questions, what about this in the Bible? And I gave you some examples. We'll give some biblical examples later on. We will. In the end of last week, I threw out the book, The Lost World of the Conquest. I meant to say, The Lost World of the Israelite Conquest is the book you ought to read. I mentioned last time, The Lost World of the Israelite Conquest. It's a longer title by John Walton and something Walton, his son. Anyway, that's about the Israelite conquest and the Canaanites and all that. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Any questions or comments? Anything so far? Anything morality thus far?
Where's the word fiat come from?
Where does the word fiat come from? It is Latin. So ask your son.
I will.
Yeah?
I will.
Yeah, it is Latin. It means to command or some kind of command. Yeah, good. You'll often hear that in ethical discussions. They'll call it divine fiat. Divine fiat. It's very common, but it just means divine commandment, divine order, divine obligation, divine. Anyway, but fiat's a very kind. I didn't say it last week. Good question. Anything else? Question or comments? Good. All right. What are we at? Number 6. We're on number 7. Number 7. Let's do this. Various systems of ethics. Okay. This is what we call moral philosophy. So now we're talking about those you might say kind of like applied ethics. So we're moving from the abstract. It's still abstract, but now we're getting to a little more concrete. I didn't promise because I always just tell the truth, but I told you we're going to start very abstract, get more and more concrete. You're welcome. We're coming down the tunnel. So stay with me. Stay with me. Descriptive ethics, that's a title for when people ask the question, how do people behave? It's descriptive. What's the weather outside? That's just descriptive. So it's descriptive. It's primarily concerned with discovering how people actually behave, think, feel in relation to morality. For example, descriptive ethics when you might take a poll on capital punishment or you take a poll on abortion. It doesn't make something moral, but you're describing the ethical landscape. That's descriptive ethics. And you can do all kinds of Google research on these kinds of things. What do people these days in culture? That's descriptive ethics. But one of the sub-branches of that you might include is something called psychological egoism. And I'm not going to spend much time, but this is a kind. Psychological egoism is under that umbrella. It's based on this principle. People always act out of some degree of self-interest. People always. So it's a way of describing why people act the way they do. They think they act morally because there's a self-interest involved. That's why they're acting morally. Psychological egoism. Remember your Sigmund Freud, right? Egoism. E-G-O-I-S-M. E-G-O-I-S-M. Which means all actions are equally selfish. Psychological egoism has difficulty listing specific motivations, since we can and usually do have multiple reasons for doing something selfish, they would say. And they would also say it's difficult to have a purely altruistic motive. For example, at some level, doing good brings me pleasure, even if what I did hurt me in other ways, like saving a person from a burning building. Some say that's really why people do good, because at some level it just serves you. Well, for the Christian, this fails because for several reasons. One is it doesn't take into account that not all actions are equally sinful or selfish, and people can be transformed in Christ. So I don't think this answers why people behave the way they do, and certainly not as Christians. But you could get a little subsections of different kinds of psychological egoism and da-da-da-da. But this is pretty common, since the word psychological. I bet if Brock were here tonight, who's a licensed therapist, he would say a lot more about this. But there's a massive movement amongst therapists, for psychologists, for some time, for both psychologists and therapists, to assume psychological egoism. That when a person comes and sits on their chair or the couch and asks them, let's talk about you and why they do what they do, a lot of times we and they are taught to just assume somehow this behavior serves their own interest at some level. And some believe that's the only reason why people do things they think are good. But I don't find that compelling, but I do think partly that is true. That's descriptive ethics. How do they behave? Prescriptive ethics, all the times called normative ethics. I will typically say prescriptive. I say or and things like that, just in case you ever want to read on the subject and you hear these vocabulary words. It means the same thing. Prescriptive, think of prescription. You go to the doctor, you get a prescription. That's it. So prescription, what should we do? Not what do we do, but what should we? How do we behave? And that's concerned with prescribing or dictating certain actions, behaviors, modes of feeling and thinking. There you go. And then if you had applied ethics under that category, you would say, what's the right thing to do with abortion, infanticide, animal rights, environment, homosexuality, capital punishment, nuclear war? That's what should we do in this situation? That's all prescriptive. So the short of the story on this part, and I'm about to move on, is most people, when they talk about morality, both non-Christian and Christian, most people talk about ethics in a prescriptive sense. Most people, when I ask the question, how do I describe what we should do? That's what most people, not all, but... So because of that, I'm going to spend the most amount of time on that, on prescriptive ethics. And that's what we'll get into tonight. Let me pause there. Any questions or comments? Okay, here's some examples of prescriptive or normative ethics. And the three biggies are deontology, consequentialism, and virtue. And that's in your handout. Roman number 8, right? Is that correct? Before I give you those three biggies, I'm going to give you one small one. And that's because this is a possibility and some people argue for this. It's called ethical egoism. What is best for me? And that's, like I said, back that psychological bit. Ethical egoism, based on this principle, everyone should act so as to maximize his or her own benefit. Look out for number 1. So what should I do? What's the right thing to do? What best serves you? That's called ethical egoism. Make sure you understand egoism. Egoism. What's best for me? What should I do in this scenario? What's best for number 1, baby? I don't find this compelling on multiple reasons, but it is one view. Of course, this redefines morality because now you say it's good to be selfish. Think about that for a second. If everything that's moral value is good and what serves me, it's like saying it's good to be selfish. But everyone knows it's not good to be selfish. I mean, that's a fundamental moral value amongst all cultures. It's not good to be selfish. It's good to be unselfish or generous or that sense. So that would be silly. And of course, in Christianity, it's very clear this is nonsense in Christianity, the Christian worldview. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. I mean, we're here to serve. Saying the Son of God, man did not come to be served, but to serve and has given his life as ransom for many. Christianity, there's no way this fits the Christian worldview, not at all. If I can say pastorally very quickly, well, just as a human, forget my job. In my experience, this ethical egoism is, in many ways, the law of the land. People can articulate that, but I think in general Western culture, that is generally what people, if they were to articulate that, I think most people are ethical egoists. What really is best for me and mines? I'm going to get mines. That's what I've been told. I'm going to get it. I heard that all my childhood, all through school. Elaine says it every night. Every night. I said, honey, it's not mines. You can't say mines like that. Chelsea taught you wrong. Try not to smile, but this is really hard right now. Just joshing. Okay, I'm going to move on. That's not a biggie, but it is out there. So if you find someone saying, what's in it for me? You go, you're an ethical egoist, and then leave the room. And run out.
Got a question about that.
Yes, sir.
If we are to store up our treasures in heaven.
So when Jesus, for example, when Jesus commands us to give to the poor and instead store up your treasure in heaven, or don't, yeah. Because, or you said the last one was get a crown.
Yeah.
Like there's some payoff, yeah. So the question there is what, isn't that selfish?
Yes.
Isn't it selfish for those reasons? My response is no. Is there a personal payoff? Yes.
What's the difference?
Selfish means I do things only for my good. And I don't think in my view, when we obey God's fiat, his commandments, it is not only for our good. It is actually, It's good for God, it's good for our neighbor, and it's good for ourselves.
But if we do something to help our neighbor, it's not just for our good.
It's not just for our good if we do something to help our neighbor. Correct. Right.
So that wouldn't be.
Is that egoism to do
It
something?
makes me feel good to help you.
Gotcha. Is it egoism if I feel good to help you?
Yeah.
In my understanding, no. Because, no, I don't. And as we go on a little bit later, we'll talk about that. My view is there's nothing. Egoism means I do it for self-interests. Ethical egoism means I should do what I consider the right thing because it serves me well. That is, in general, that's why I do things. It is true in Christianity that there are more, and we'll talk about this when we get to some biblical examples later, there are times when Jesus will prohibit some things because there will be punishment. There are times where he encourages things because there will be reward. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to be punished, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be rewarded.
The key lies in the motive.
The key lies in the motives. That's what I would argue, but that's because I'm a virtue ethicist, and I'll go there later on. But depending on what these big three are about to talk about, they'll have different responses. These are great questions but in general, an ethical egoist says you should always do what best serves you. And I would argue in Christianity, we're not supposed to always do what best serves us. But I'm not against, I don't think the Christian worldview is against there being some self-interest. I think Christianity is very much against only being concerned with self-interest. And that's what an ethical egoist will say. I hope that God rewards me with his presence. I hope so. That's not the only reason I do it, but it is one of the reasons I do it.
I was just thinking that the ethical egoism is more like worldly things, just.
Maybe so. You think that ethical egoism is more like worldly things.
Which are
Maybe
not,
so.
And then the other is heavenly things, which is.
Oh, the other
totally
thing is heavenly
different,
things.
Because that's a different kind of goal. It's not a worldly thing that he's hoping for.
Maybe so. You're talking about worldly things versus spiritual things. Maybe so. I always try my best. I do try to give the other point of view as fairly as I can. I think an ethical egoist would say, no, I also mean helping you out. Ethical egoist said, I want to help you out because it helps me. But in Christianity, we would say that means by default, all that I do for other humans means I'm using you. I'm using you for my benefit. And that's just not Christian. Right, so if a person's running for an office and they give a big contribution so they might get the votes,
To some organization and get elected.
it would help you get elected. And ethical egoists would say that's exactly what you should do. You should pay all the money you can to get elected. You should do whatever it takes to get elected because it's best for you.
I think it all comes down to heart, because
Right? So
it's a heart
it's
issue.
a hard issue where Jesus commands people, he does several times, particularly in Matthew's gospel, to give, not expecting to return. Yeah, now that's an exegetical issue, and I would think Jesus' point there is that not expecting to get return from other people, not from God.
Right.
Because Jesus has no problem saying you ought to do the right thing because God's going to reward you for it. He routinely says that. So good. And those kinds of issues, again, I'm trying, since it's hard to teach this without giving some examples of these three prescriptive ethics we're about to talk about now, because depending on which system you use is how you answer that question. And I will tell you when that's all said and done, which one because I put these in order, but good stuff. Okay, so the big three, here's the biggies. The first one's called deontology. Let's practice that. Say deontology. Deontology. Don't be afraid. That's what I love what a preacher says. Don't be afraid. Deontology, the Greek word deontos means duty. Duty or rule. Deontology, the study of duties, the study of, you might say, rules. Deontological ethics stresses the notion that certain actions are inherently right or wrong. Fairness, rules, justice, especially duty. They would say the end does not always justify the means. The end does not always justify the means. The means matters. Certain actions are inherently right or wrong. Now, for example, and a little footnote, many Christians misunderstand Jesus' debate with the Pharisees and believe that Jesus is completely, quote, against making rules, since that makes you a legalist. And in fact, many have become antinomian. Antinomian means against all laws. Antinomian. Antinomian means against law, against rule. In the early church, the Apostle Paul combats antinomianism in Galatians. So antinomian comes from two Greek words, anti and then nomos. Nomo, against the law, against rule. And Paul combats that because certain Christians are so freed by Christ, they said, we live however we want to do. And like the Romans, he said, should we keep on sinning so that grace may abound? in Greek, he says something quite strongly I don't say in polite settings. Begenito, absolutely not. No, how can you keep on sinning for those who have died to sin? And so, but he's finding that early on. Not to be mean, I absolutely see this in churches and different denominations because they have rebelled so much against the concept of duty or rules because that's legalism. They've gone the farther pendulum, which means there's no moral obligation for anything because why? God loves you and it's all grace. And all I'm saying is in the New Testament, that was battled. And so these two extremes of rules save you, that's legalism. She's trying to get pictures and she's never a pre. How do I do this and look legal? On the one extreme, look natural. So I can do it like this. On the one hand is rule-based, which means if I perform well, God will welcome me and I'm saved. On the other hand is it doesn't matter what you do ever. And those are two extremes that I still, and that's not in the New Testament Christianity. It's just not. So we'll talk about that later on. So some people hear deontological ethics and immediately go, oh, that's the bad one because it's based on rules and duty. Well, hold on a second. Anyway, we'll go about that. God gave certain rules to be followed as supported by Jesus. He did give certain rules to follow. For example, Matthew chapter 9, like what you do with your body and who you marry. There's all kinds of rules. Do not, I know you've heard don't murder, but I say don't hate your brother, don't call him these words and so forth. So rules are in the New Testament. I'm going to come back later and give you some specific examples. I've debated how to do this, but I'm going to give you a big over picture, and then maybe next week or the week after we'll go back to biblical examples. Moreover, listen here, rules and limits can provide healthy boundaries to our goals, even if it's a good goal. For example, people say euthanasia. Euthanasia, we'll call it active, when you deliberately kill a person because they're in a bad state of somehow. Some say that is a good, but the divine prerogative says you can't hurry up and kill their death. That's so the argument goes. So the duty or rule is let them live, preserve their life. So it can have healthy limits. So as creatures, we're called to do good, all the good we can, but this means all the good we morally can within certain limits. People who are deontologists believe in something called negative responsibility. Negative responsibility. And negative responsibility in deontology means that we are, listen here, that they're morally responsible not just for what we do, but for what we allow to happen. Deontologists claim we have a very limited negative responsibility. They focus on what we do rather than what we allow. For example, the good that could have happened had we went to war. We are morally responsible for that. The suffering we could have alleviated how we help that person die. They'd say morally responsible for that. So a little bit negative responsibility. So they would say if you have a moral duty to do it and you don't, you're culpable. You've done something wrong. And it's called negative responsibility. That only really works in deontology. Because you have the moral duty, you should have done it. You should follow it no matter what. There are two major issues involved with deontology, at least. But here are the first two major issues if you're a deontologist. So now before I say that, just remind yourself. We'll look at some examples here. Give me a moral duty. Let's say Jesus says to what? Give me a moral duty that Jesus says. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's, Jesus said that. That's okay. Matthew 7. 12. Good. Where my Bible root is at. Okay, so Jesus said that, and a lot of people did, and so did Buddha, and all in negative form. Okay, love your neighbor as yourself. That's a moral duty. We're supposed to do that. But the New Testament is full of moral duties. It's full of them. I just read one on the sermon on Sunday. Paul tells Timothy that the rich should what? Take care of the poor. They should be generous givers. On and on. There's tons of duties in the New Testament and the Old Testament. And we'll look at some specific issues after I cover all three big systems. I'm going to do that as a reminder as I get there later on. But the first major issue is which rules? Which rules do you choose to base your morality on? That's the first major issue of deontology. So if you're a non-Christian, or if you are a Christian, the question is, which rules do you choose? And that's why I have that here in your handout there, letter C1. Several answers have been given to this question. Which rules do I choose? Which rules are for deontology? For example, if you've ever heard of a guy named Immanuel Kant was a philosopher. He proposed things called a categorical imperative. Categorical imperatives are commands that are not dependent on any condition or situation in order to be right. And he only had two. Never act except in such a way that you can also will that your maximum should become a universal law. So let me say it in a different way. Act in such a way that anyone in your situation would act the same. So the first, he said, a categorical imperative is act in such a way that anybody in your shoes in the same situation around the world will do the same thing. If you know of the thing that fits that category, you should do it. That's the rule you should follow. Say it one more time. So if you're saying, what rule should I follow if you're a deontologist? Should I follow the rule that, if anybody were in your shoes, they would do the same thing. The second thing he said is, always treat other persons as ends in themselves and never as a means. See, he said, people are not expendable objects. So one person should not be sacrificed for the good of the majority, because people are just an end. They're never a means to an end. So if you could save that one person, if you could kill one person to save 1,000,000, he said, don't do it. That's a categorical imperative. That's one option. I don't find that compelling, but that's one option. That's a possible. I like the universal law bit, but that's it. But that's one option. I'm just giving you broad. This is super broad, but you can go read Immanuel Kant's imperative. Go do a Google search for categorical imperatives and read your heart out. In Christianity, what Christians and Jews have said is that no, you pick various biblical rules. You pick various biblical rules. So some Christians, and I've heard this through years, is they say, that they would say the Ten Commandments, or we would say the Decalogue. Go to Exodus chapter 20. I did a whole 2-part sermon series on that. Some say those are the rules you follow no matter what. Some say, no, the love commandment, Mark 12, 29, 31, right? Love God with thy heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. They say that's the rule you should follow. Or the golden rule of Matthew 7, 12, or Luke 6, 31, and so forth. So one way to do it is to find these abstract categorical imperatives. Another way is to find one ethical system. So if you're a Muslim, you pick the Quran's ethical statements. If you're a Jew, you pick the Torah and then their Talmud. If you're a Christian, you pick some biblical texts and they say, those are my rules. And if we just follow those rules, we're all good. So the first question is, which rules do you pick? And if you're going to be a deontologist, you got to say, here are the rules I pick, and here's why. Here are the rules I pick and why. The second major issue with deontology is the applicability of the rules. That is to say, how do you apply the rules you've chosen? How do you apply them? And this, quite frankly, changed my life. It really did. Certain things do, and this really helped the way I think about moral values and duties. This next section, because now I see it all the time, and I'll tell you, I apply this all the time in my life to all kinds of areas. So how do you apply it? The first is you got to pick your rules. Which ones do you choose? Second is, how do you apply the rules? Let me use C.S. Lewis's analogy. If these rules are keys on a keyboard like a piano, how do I know which one to push? How do I know which one to push? How do I apply them at this moment? So the first question you ask is applicability. One is, what is the meaning of the rule? You have to figure out what the meaning is. You've got to figure that out. So for example, let's say Spencer says, my rule is love your neighbor as yourself. That's my top rule no matter what. Then the question is, what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? You've got to understand what the meaning is. If it says the top rule I'm going to follow is honor your father and mother, well then you got to figure out what it does mean. So you can't just say I follow the rule. You got to explain what it means. In my sermon, I did my best to explain in historical context what those moral commandments mean. But you got to figure it out. The second thing is you apply it. In ethicists, we talk about, in deontology, the weight of rules. So if you're a deontologist, this is the part that kind of really changed my life here. You talk about the weight of rules, like something is heavy. So to answer the question, how do you apply it? They say, that depends on the weight of the rule. You asked a question 2-3 weeks ago, is it a sliding scale? And I said, yes, we'll come back. Now we're in that moment. It's kind of like a sliding scale of weight. That is to say, once the meaning is determined, is it applied all the same way? Is it good to be honest? The answer is, in general, the answer is deontologist says, yes, it is. Honesty is inherently good, which means it's inherently right to always be honest, or most of the time honest, or sometimes honest. It depends on what weight you put to that moral value. And so there are three basic weights to any kind of moral duty or rule. And one is called absolute. That means you do not break it. The moral duty is hell will freeze over, they will kill you and chop you in pieces, and your kids, you won't break it. You're just not going to do it. You're never ever going to break this absolute rule. Like in Roman Catholicism, abortion is an absolute rule. So is wearing contraceptives. If you're a Jew, there are three absolute rules you do not break. They'll kill you, but it's fine, but you'll die before you do these three things. You know what they are? In Judaism. Anybody, just guess. Murder, idolatry, and incest. Those three are the biggies. So those are absolute rules. I mean, never, ever, ever in a million years won't happen. Put a gun to your head, you're going to kill me. I'm not going to do those rules. I have the moral duty not to do the prohibition. The second is what's called prima facie. A prima facie, just of course, you know your Latin, maybe not. It means at face value. Prima facie means at face value, or at first view, basically, at first view is literally what it means. Oh, you're up to when rules are considered morally binding initially, unless another ethical choice must override the first rule. Most deontologists that I know of, and certainly my experience, put most moral duties here at prima facie. That is, they're all really, really good unless one other one beats it. So let's list some moral duties, or I'll call them values for now. A value is honesty. The duty would be tell the truth. The moral value is honesty. The moral duty is tell the truth. When is it good to tell the truth? But does that make sense? You see the distinction, moral value and a duty. Let's see, honesty, justice, loyalty. The opposite would be betrayal. Love versus hate, you might say. The preservation of human life. Bravery versus being a coward. I mean, you're on the list of all kinds of things that are moral values. So in any given moment, actually, I'm going to give you some case study in a second. So I can list a whole bunch of moral values and put these in the duties. Good to be honest, to make sure we're not unjust, be loyal versus betraying a person, love the person versus hate, preserve human life versus taking it, killing or murdering, be brave versus being a coward, down the list. Yes, sir?
Sometimes, isn't it,
Sometimes is it better to lie to a person to prevent them from feeling anguish?
a lie that would, example,
Well,
and
The answer is, that's a great question. The answer is that depends on how you weight these rules. So let's put kindness up there. Kindness is preserving someone's emotional state.
I mean, if it's
Not
really
being
important,
mean.
I mean, that's not a, something really serious.
Okay, I'm going to give you some examples, serious, because this is the real world stuff. It's a good question. So these are all kinds, we can make a list, and if we had the time and wanted to, we make a big fat list of typical things that are basically universal. I mean, imagine a culture in the world where they pride themselves on being cowards. They pride themselves on betraying you. That's silly. No, these are general. We pride ourselves on being hateful. No one does that. These are universal human things. And if you don't think these are universal, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your psychological state and your moral state. So when do you know? If you're a deontologist, you figure out the meaning. You got to figure out the weight. The answer is, well, how do you know which one to pick on the other one? This is what they're usually going to say. You pick the one when your reasons can be defended publicly. It's a last resort. We should seek the action that least violates the principle being overridden, and usually involves feeling somewhat guilty for breaking the first rule and might involve apologizing. So that's it. And I'm going to come back and give you some examples. I'm going to come back in a second. The third, so that's 1, 2. The third thing is what we might call the rule of thumb. That just means, yeah, in general, it's good to do that. Yeah, in general. It's good to do that. Okay. This is where I used to get my students all the time and have them squirm in their seats, kind of, but you won't squirm. But they never thought about this. And then they'll go tell their other teachers. I would say, okay, if you, I'm just by show of hands, it's post-bomb blew off, an EMP in the air, we lost electronics, and everything's gone, and then we're looking for medicine for your family. And what do y'all have around? CVS, Walgreens, both of them? See, Walgreens is down the street, and it's the last minute, people are rushing the shelves. Would you steal to get the medicine to come back and help save your family? Let's say your family needs the medicine. Would you steal? Would you steal? So let's say respecting property, because everyone knows in general that's good to respect property. So raise your hand. So raise your hand. Would you steal to get the medicine to save your family? So you've broken respect property, but I'm going to assume for a second you're not just villains and evil Satan. You're trying to uphold a different value. What other value you're trying to uphold, or other values you're trying to uphold? Those who said you would steal. Preservation of human life. What about y'all? You raise your hand. That one. Is there anything else that you would do? Are there any other value that you're trying to uphold?
Love.
Okay.
Kindness.
Loyalty, all of it.
Okay, so you're trying to.
Mercy.
So
Grace.
you're saying I'll get rid of this one to keep loyal love, loyalty, personal human life. So what you've done, whether you realize or not, is you instantaneously categorize the weight of these rules. And you chose lying, so you broke honesty, and you broke respecting other people's property, because it wasn't yours to take. And to some degree, it's like kind of being honest, but I'll just keep one of them just for fun. So you broke this one to preserve the other ones. A deontologist would say, you have a prima facie duty to make sure you respect property. It probably, or might say rule of thumb. That depends on you. You decide what the way of the rule is. But let's say for a second, I think Vanna, you raised your hand, right? No, who raised your hand?
Yes, I would.
Susan did. Susan's the thief. Okay. Susan.
It would be very scary.
It would be very scary. So let's say we're being distant, removed from it, but okay. So you say, I would do that because they would say, deontologists would say, you only do that when you can defend the reasons publicly. It's a last resort. We should seek an action that at least violates the principle being overridden. Mm-hmm. And then fourth, it usually involves feeling somewhat guilty for breaking it.
Huge. Sure.
So that'd be a deontologist. But what you're doing is you're choosing a moral value or a duty to do it, and you've categorized it. And okay, great. Okay, so those of you who did not raise their hand, who did not say, I will not steal to save my family's life with that medicine, who didn't raise their hand? Only some of y'all raised your hand. Everyone else is lying? What?
I don't know what I would do in that situation.
So would you steal? And you didn't raise your hand. The answer is you wouldn't
I
steal.
don't know what I would do. It would be
I
my
don't
last
know.
resort.
Would I let the person in line in front of me cut and steal, and then I would steal after them? I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know how dire the situation would be. Because I don't.
Your family's going to die without this medication.
No, I don't.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
There's no other way. If they don't get the medicine,
But you have to have a plan to steal it, you just can't.
I mean, you have to be. Yeah. I just don't.
I don't think I could premeditate it. Just be like.
I mean, I think at that point it would be throwing elbows everywhere, and I don't.
yeah, you would. And in your mind, you'd make up instantaneously yes or no.
It's borrowed.
Deontologists would say, based on the weight of the rules in your psyche, you would decide instinctively what you would do. Some of y'all say instinctively, I'd go steal that junk. Others say, I don't know, I'd wrestle with it for a long time. Who would say I wouldn't wrestle with it? I would not steal it.
Just tell yourself you're borrowing it.
Well, I was gonna say,
Tell yourself.
Wants to do what we're basically saying, I put an IOU there.
I gotta say something.
Everyone
Yes,
can
hold
say
on,
that.
Susan. What?
If I were doing that,
Mm-hmm.
it would be because I was valuing someone else's lives above mine.
Okay.
That's how much I would have to care about that person, I think, in
So-
that way. Because it'd be like, whatever has to happen to me, I want them okay.
Gotcha. So the preservation of human life. Good. Okay. So who in here would not? Yes.
I think if you put a twist on this, just to make it a little interesting, if you were to if one of your family members was gonna die and you had to get this medicine, but it was medication somebody else needed for their family member to
I'm not
die.
there yet.
Okay, all right.
So, let me ask you a question.
Would you still take it?
What?
Don't take this the wrong way, but is it necessarily bad that your family dies? I mean, if they're saved, they're gonna go to heaven, so they're thumbs up. So is it necessarily bad that they do die because you wanted to uphold the, I do not steal?
So your question is it necessarily bad if your family dies because let's say they're Christians, God's going to welcome them back? The answer is you can answer it two ways. If you're a consequentialist, we're not there yet, but you know where we're headed. Consequentialists would say that's exactly why you don't need to steal, because it's a better consequence for them to go to heaven, you might say, than it is for you to steal. The consequence, it speeds up the process, they might argue. A deontologist might argue what you just said and say, no. Respecting someone's property is not prima facie, it's absolute, which means I will not break it, even if people die. And I can defend that publicly because I know my family's Christian or go. So it depends on the weight of the rule. But most people don't put it at the top of the list, but you can if you want. You can say, no, my family's just going to die. I will not steal something.
Well, I know where I stand.
So don't be in danger. But the point is, philosophically, you can make the argument. That's a deontologist will do that. That's why, remember, that's what we're talking about. Don't forget the big picture here. The first issue is which rules. Two is how do we apply it? And these are the difficulties of being a deontologist, because then they start debating which rules, depending on the scale, absolute, prima facie, or rule of thumb. And that's the debate, if you're a deontologist. So you would steal. Okay, anybody here would not steal, that your family's just going to die? Okay, so all of you are going to steal. Okay, those of you who raise your hand pretty quickly and steal, okay, let's say, well, do I have to plan it? Do I know them? Do I forget? Just in the moment, you know your family's going to die, it's between them. Okay, now the second thing is, okay, so those you would steal. How many of you would hurt the person who's blocking the medicine to get the medicine to get to your family?
I think my morals are messed up, David.
I gotta be faster than her.
That's why I'm scared.
I'm wiry.
Jesse's like, I'm the one blocking the medicine. You're not going to get All right. Okay, how many of you would hurt the person? Cassidy would. Yeah, I know he would. Your family's going to die if they don't get the medicine. They will die. It's certainty.
It depends if someone is one person's hogging it all. Well, yeah, it's a free for all. But if it's like, I don't know, if it's just like one vial of something and someone's like, no, this is mine. Well, no, it's not worth that. No.
So your family's going to die.
I'm sure we can find it at Walgreens or CVS.
Your family's going to die.
Or Dillon's. We're gonna go somewhere else.
Your family's going to
Now,
die.
if it's one guy blocking and holding everything back, yeah, you better go in there fighting. But if he's not, then we're gonna
So
go.
one guy has one vial, and your family's going to die. Do you hurt the person to get the medication?
No, it's not worth it.
Already stopped, except for Cassidy.
I'm in there, I'm getting it.
Okay. Everybody else is sending you in, so they don't feel guilty.
Zombie apocalypse.
Chelsea's got a little club in her hand. All right. Now, why is that, Cassidy? Why is it the fact that you would hurt a person because you're not being kind, you're not respecting someone's property, you're not showing love.
Or preservation of life.
So
Survival.
what
My
value?
loyalty to my family, I'd do anything for my family.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's the number one deal out of all of it. All those other ones can go bye-bye, my loyalty will still stay the same.
I like that.
loyalty and I guess it sounds like preservation of human life.
Yeah.
So for you, it sounds like these things are what we call absolute rules. I will do anything else to make sure these values are upheld.
Correct.
Well, then we're already done because the kids usually keep going on for a while.
Sometimes, yeah.
They're like, I'd beat them up. Then ask the question, would you kill a person? Would you kill a person to get the medicine to save your family?
I'd do anything I have to.
Yeah, so you'd murder.
No, I need
So,
to
okay, but here's the question. Here's the question. So now you're breaking your own absolute moral value. You're not preserving human life. You've now killed it to save your own.
You're preserving your life.
It's preserving the family that he cares about, the human life that he cares about.
It'd have to be, you'd have to put it in, I guess I can't answer that and say that I
That's
kill
right.
somebody, just have
Unless
to
it's
have a reason.
self-defense, right?
What'd you say?
Unless it's self-defense.
Well, it'd have to be the right reason for it.
Your family's about to die. They need that medicine. And he's in the way of it. It's a he.
But you're preserving one life by taking another.
That's true. You're still preserving a life, you're saving a life.
But your loyalties.
But you just broke your absolute rule.
No, I wouldn't kill somebody to save one of my family members if it was a,
Your whole family. They're all going to die.
Yeah, then I would.
Okay.
This whole family,
The whole family's going to die unless this guy. So you would kill this guy to save your whole family.
the whole family, absolutely.
That's what.
We're responsible for our families. We're not responsible for everybody else.
Survival of the
In that
fittest is what I
case.
would
So don't
say.
come to church.
yeah.
Don't come to
That's
church.
right.
'Cause
So
you know,
then what if the vial is broken?
Well, say okay. All I'm doing. Okay, let me give you a scenario. Doors are shut, and someone comes in and they knock on the door, and there's a gun at the door, and they say, "We're going to kill every single person in this room, unless you send out one person."
Are you visiting?
Am I visiting?
Yeah, because we'll send you out.
Yes. Thank you. Wow.
I'm sorry, start over again.
Raise your hand if you're a guest. Someone out the door says, I've got a bomb, I'm going to blow up the entire building unless you send out one person. I will kill one person to save all the rest. Would you send out a person to save the rest of us? Would you send out a person to save the group?
I would hope to volunteer.
No, I would hope to be brave enough to.
Yeah, they wouldn't kill you. You'd use you as a hostage. They wouldn't kill you.
They're going to kill you.
No, they won't. They
So who would offer themselves?
I hope.
Okay, so let's say, for example, let's assume you hope. Why would you?
My kids were in that book.
Let's do that. Why would you do that? Why would you offer yourself to save the people? Why would you do that?
Well, to save everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, what moral values are you trying to uphold?
Preservation of the
Love, yeah.
Other people's life, but not your own.
Bravery,
Yeah.
too, kindness.
Yeah, bravery,
Kindness,
being
love,
kind,
mercy,
loving.
grace.
bravery.
I already know where I'm going,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
And they
If
don't,
someone
they don't
shoots
know
me.
what about the others.
Maybe us three could take it
That's
down.
So we've been on for a while, and so then the issue is, you could give a scenario, and these are real world scenarios we can talk about when it comes to, there's all kinds of things, war and things in daily life, and this goes through every decision we make, whether you cut someone off in traffic, whether you sit in someone's favorite chair or pew, we are always, every day, all the time, having a bunch of moral values and duties in our moral consciousness. And we are every second choosing which rule floats to the top, the one we choose. Which note do we push? We all do it all the time. And what most people argue about, in my experience, is not if it's a moral value. They're really debating the weight of the rule. And every meeting I have ever been to, ever, churches, not churches, does not matter. The most heated discussions to the lighthearted whatever, every time they're disagreeing, no one has ever, besides when I've been their consultant, said, what are the values you're trying to uphold? They all agree certain things are good, and go to the whiteboard and say, what are you trying to, integrity of the system, top sales, whatever it might be. Well, you put on the board and go, now raise your hand if you think these are dumb reasons. No one raises their hands. Because everyone agrees these are morally good things for that company or the organization or the church. What they disagree upon are the weight of the rules. Which one beats the other ones? And when you get clarity on that, and you start, wait a second, we think about it. Now that I see it on black and white, I do think that's more important than that one. But that's how it is in life all the time.
I
Yes.
think we really have to be grounded in Christ. What it is, but then it's too late. We gotta be able to be like Jesus.
Or it's too late. Too late.
Cut that family matter.
So what she said is we need to be so grounded in Jesus that when there is a moral dilemma, as we call this a moral dilemma, we choose the right one based on what Jesus would do, and we don't wait 30 minutes before he's the standard. I concur with that, but you've just brought up two different ethical systems. One is called virtue ethics, that is, and I'll talk about this a lot later on, not tonight, but in virtue ethics, ethicists argue that we should do the right thing is the right thing when it shapes our character. A Christian virtue ethicist would say when it shapes our character to be like Christ. You can be a Christian deontologist and say, go be like Jesus in that we're obeying what he commanded. That's a deontological approach. So we can know what Jesus commanded and go do it no matter what.
But he might command a little different than we expect.
So Jesus might have more insight to the situation.
We
And
need
so,
to have,
and that's an argument against Christian deontological ethics. So that would be an argument against it.
I don't know, in a way,
But that's fine. I'm just saying that is an argument against it.
The technical words.
Oh, let me say it this way. That's an argument against following the rules of Jesus,
It is.
what you just said. Because you'd say that is the rules based on what we have in the New Testament. If you're saying sometimes Jesus can tell us more now, that's revelatory. Well, let's go back, and we'll go to virtue. If you'll hold that, we'll come, I don't want to cause more confusion, because I have to use vocabulary we haven't talked about yet. So stick with me. Yes.
Your examples
Yes, my examples.
show or made us believe that we knew what was going to happen in the future. If we did this, this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going to happen in the future.
True.
So if we make a decision based on the sliding scale, we're basing it on what may happen, not what will happen. Because yeah, if we get the medicine, yes, it may save the family, but it may be the wrong medicine. Or if we try to beat the guy up, he may kick our rears. And so we have lost, our family has lost, the lead of it, or whoever was, fighting the guy to get the medicine. Or if you send somebody out before they throw the bomb in, how do you know that they won't say, hey, send somebody else out, we didn't like this person, we're gonna, throw a bomb in. So you're making us make a decision on something that we do not know, as in the future.
So my scenarios assume that we know the future, but in reality we don't. I agree, but
We don't
that,
know in reality what the future.
what's that? We don't,
We do not know what the reality is.
we don't know the reality is in the future. Correct, which is why I didn't give you reality. I deliberately gave you a scenario. We do this all the time in moral philosophy. We do the what ifs, and that's to demonstrate an argument or demonstrate a scenario. So in the scenario, you do know, and I'm trying to push that on purpose so that it lets go of the ignorance factor. It's called the veil of ignorance. So we don't know what's going on. That's different. In reality, if you did not know what's going to happen, then you have consequentialist ethics that come to bear a lot more, and then you have deontological, and that's greater argument. At this point, I'm trying to deliberately get you to focus on moral values and duties in the moment, so you do know the outcome.
If we knew the outcome in the future, we would make a lot of decisions differently than what we've already made.
If we knew the outcome in the future, it'd make a lot of difference, absolutely, and that's not the purpose of the scenarios. The purpose of scenarios is to highlight that whenever we make a decision, a moral decision, we are appealing to a particular moral value or duty. We are appealing to it. So whether we know the outcome or not, we're still appealing to it. Like when Cassie says, yeah, preservation of human life is top notch, that's it. I want to save my family no matter what. No matter what means ignorant of the future, or I do know the future. I will do whatever it takes. Whatever gets in the way, I'm going to preserve my family. I'll kill, pillage, steal. What other things would you do? I don't know.
You want me to tell you?
Everything. No, don't tell. There are kids nearby. That's right. So a deontologist, all I'm trying to do is make the point that we have moral values and duties intrinsically to which we all appeal daily, all the time. A deontologist, and again, I'm just telling you the view. You don't have to be a deontologist. I'll tell you now. I am in second order. That's the second thing I go to, but it's not my first. But it can be your first if you want. A deontologist would argue that you need to have your rules weighted and have them and stick with them. So if you're going to preservation of human life is typically considered an absolute, almost always, in most ethical deontological systems. So they'll say, pick it out. The rest of them, they just put them out in order. And that's the whole point, is they would say, you got a list of it, some are heavier than others. That is by their impact or their value, you might say. So at the top would be the heaviest, the lightest at the bottom. And then different deontologists have different sets of systems. And it's a good little exercise sometimes if you want, really just for fun, Chelsea, is list out all the moral values you can think of and put them in order of things you think are the most important. It's hard to do in general, but deontologists will do that. And some don't. Some say, well, there's 2, 3, 4 I can put in this category. All the rest fit here. And then some are kind of like rule of thumb. But people ask, what's the right thing to do? You hear a person go, well, it depends. Depends on what? If they say it depends on the future outcome, you're a consequentialist. If you say it depends on the moral duty, that's a deontologist. If you say it depends on how it forms my character, that's a virtue ethicist. Depends on what? And we're only talking about one so far tonight, and that's just the rules. So a deontologist cares about the rules. Not because they're legalist, but because they care about rules. They care about moral duties. The first is, which rules or duties do you choose? You got to figure that out. And two is, how do you weight them? And my encouragement to you is, what changed my life is, we all do this instinctively all the time. We're all picking and choosing which moral value in that moment to uphold. For example, it's the white lie. Is it okay to lie to your wife? Does this make me look fat? You want to preserve your own human life, but you want to tell the truth, perhaps, or you want to show the loving response. But people do it all the time, and so that's why people say, it's okay to lie in that moment. It's okay to lie. What they've done immediately is put honesty beneath something else. And most people, it's not preservation of human life, it's what? Kindness. And so they think, in that moment, I want to preserve your emotions. I want to be as kind as that. I interpret that to be kind, and so I will lie to make sure I uphold that. In that moment, you had a heavier weight to being kind. Your understanding of kindness. Yeah, self-preservation maybe so. Some people do that. They would say, no, I don't want to sleep on the couch. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get in a fight. That's ethical egoism. That is, I want to choose in this moment, I'm going to lie to you because it helps me sleep on the bed and sleep comfortably.
So
Yes?
if someone does not look good
If someone does not look good,
in the dress, or
that's right. So, and I repeat all this so that they can hear it on the camera, because you can't without in the microphone. So if you do tell someone, you look great in that dress, and you go out and everyone goes, that looks awful. And they come back to you and say, why did you do that? So you cause more harm by trying to be kind.
yes,
Yeah, and you like consequentialist ethics. You go there all the time. That would be a consequentialist ethic. That's exactly right. It is a consequential ethic. They would say that, which means you do not do that, because the consequence would be greater emotional harm by knowing everyone laughing at the dress than you saying you should not wear that dress. It might hurt your feelings now, but I'm trying to preserve you later on.
well, no, that was just an example of
Yeah.
not knowing the future.
Of not knowing the future.
Someone could, you could say, yeah, you look great now, you think you, such as,
Except you,
I'm just
but
gonna tell you the
yeah,
truth.
except the
Look
scenario you
bad.
just gave, you did know the future.
Yes, but if you,
And when you do know the future, that's a consequentialist ethic. When you don't, if you said, I have no idea how tonight's going to go. I don't know if anybody else in the world's going to like her dress. Should I tell her the truth or not? That's deontological. Then the issue is, what's the value I should place? What should I tell her now based in this moment? A consequentialist would argue, which again, I have to keep getting ahead of myself. Consequentialist would say that depends on the consequence of me lying to her. The consequence would be it preserves her emotions, and then blah, blah, blah. What if, and I'm going to come later on, one of the great deficiency of consequentialist ethics is we do not know the future. And I'll go there, that's one of the great weaknesses of it, is that,
Stand there and consider these alternatives,
Mhm.
you're gonna assume you don't like the dress.
so if you stand there and consider all the alternatives, honey, what are you waiting on? Spencer, I'm calculating the risk analysis of all the Oh, what? If I lie to you, if I tell you the truth, you hate it. Maybe.
Well, I usually get a real direct answer.
Yeah.
Well, you can just say, you know, I've seen you wear something else that I really like better.
So you're saying you can say it.
Really nice.
You can be honest, but be kind,
Right, or say something about it you like the
or say something about it you like. You can do that. Why would you want to do what you just said?
Well, because
Why would you want to do it?
I would be honest, and I
You're being honest,
And I would also be trying to be kind.
trying to be kind.
And to say, you know, you have a lot of things that I really like on you
Yep.
better than this. So maybe it's not the right style, or it's not the right color or something.
Right.
Unless you wanna see it all.
So
I
what-
think it's more honest, but it's
Good.
also upholding, I don't know.
Good. So hold on. What Vanna's doing is, these are moral values, and we could list more, but she's trying to uphold honesty and kindness instead of just saying, no, I can choose one or the other one. A lot of people think honest means be a punk, be rude.
No.
Like whenever my little footnote, whenever anybody says, I just tell it how it is, I just tell the truth, they're not here just to be honest. They're there to make sure that's a very different issue. But because some people think that's what it means to be honest, means I'm rude or I'm hateful sounding. But you're right, so that's one option, is do that. A deontologist would say, what you said is good, in that you're trying carefully to weigh, you're trying to make sure the duties are followed, because these are good things. You're not just easily dismissing one. You're trying to uphold all of them at the same time, juggle all in the air, and you're trying to do it well. Others say, no, I'd just rather lie. I break that in a heartbeat. My point is, a deontologist would say, since you broke that so quickly, it means what? It's way beneath, in your view, kindness, or at least right beneath it. It's beneath kindness. Or preserving your own human life, or whatever. The point is, you have just categorized it whenever you make that decision. You want to say something, Susan? I think?
I was just gonna say, if someone's gonna say they like it, they're gonna have to see it all the time, so. you better be ready for
They say you
that.
like it. I've seen it all the time. It's like, I love your food. It becomes their favorite for years and years and years, but I always hated it. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to hurt your feelings. So you lied for all these years. You lied for all
I think
this.
it flops for a chick and a dude, because you can rearrange it for, I mean, if she came and asked me, you know, if I asked her, hey, what do you think of this outfit? She says, she's gonna be honest with me. There's no reason for her to lie. So she's gonna say, well, it looks like crap, or I don't like it. And I'm like, okay, I'll go change. I say to her, it's different, so it flops, you know? I mean, it's completely different for a woman. She's asking you, how does this look? Because she's excited about wearing it. She wants it to be emphasized. She doesn't want my real answer. You know what I mean?
Get a little
That's-
deeper into it.
It's just a different, it flops.
So you're saying it's different for the chick and the dude. It flops because she doesn't really want your answer. She wants to be praised by their dress. Well, she wants a real answer that you really like it. That's what she really wants. But anyway, I hear what you're saying. But in that response, outside of just a purely sexist kind of understanding of how the moral duties, you might say there are different, and in your relationship, you might say there are different moral duties. And so a deontologist would say that depends on the person that you're talking to, what weight you put onto it.
I would put it that way if it was a little more professional.
I don't care. No, I'm
That sounded a lot better.
good. I'm not rephrasing it because y'all can't do it. I'm just helping you say what a deontologist would say. That's right. That's right. So the different moral duties depending on that person's situation. And so that's right. Because in general, most guys, in general, it's not an act of kindness to lie to us if a shirt doesn't fit or something.
Correct.
They would much rather, or whatever. I give an analogy all the time with if you're with your friend. No, let's say a person you didn't know. You did not know, and you ate lunch with them, and they have salad, big old piece of leaf stuck in their teeth. Would you tell them or not?
Yes.
See, I just gave her the.
Raise your hand if you would. Listen, you don't know them. They're a stranger. Would you tell them they're a stranger? Why would you tell them? Why would you? I'd kill them. Just for fun. I'd kill them and eat their salad. Why would you tell a stranger that there's leaves in their teeth?
Well, it's to preserve their dignity, really, because other people are gonna be looking at them and going, oh, how gross. And
Okay.
I just
So
think
you're being honest.
it helps them to preserve their dignity.
Yeah, maybe dignity. I put dignity up here, maybe, or kindness, a sense of
Because
self-respect.
If they walk in the bathroom at 5 o'clock and they think, oh my goodness, has this been here all day? And I talked to this
Yep.
important person in this.
Real quickly, how many of you would tell a friend that there's a leaf in their teeth?
Oh, sure.
Right. How mad would you be if your friend didn't tell you?
I would be mad,
You'd be mad, wouldn't you? Now, why would you be mad?
but I'd feel bad.
Because you thought it, because you thought it was your friend's moral duty to tell you. Just like if you thought it was their duty. I thought you were my friend. Why in the world didn't you tell me that? You should have saved me from the embarrassment of blah, blah, blah. You should have respected me and been kind and honest and whatever. And it's a loving thing to do. See what happens is in life. Sorry, am I picking on this? You're going to touch on some toes right now?
That's something that you probably wouldn't do.
Wouldn't do?
You'd just be like,
He wouldn't.
saying, you know.
Well, the best thing is I usually don't tell my guy friends on purpose. That's all. That brings me pleasure. It makes me happy. Like, don't tell him that big old pepper. Why didn't you tell me? Because that was funny. Why else would I tell you? You're there for my humor. That's right, Cassidy.
I'm putting it there.
I'm quitting right. We think there's a moral duty to do that as well, and that's what I'm saying when we have these. Just I was going somewhere with that, but anyway, the point is, in life we have these kind of scenarios all the time, but we all assume there's a moral duty there that we're trying to follow, and that's what a deontologist is trying to get us to think about: is which rules we pick, and then what do they mean, and what are their weights. Any questions or comments about that at all? Move on. this,
So you
let
say,
me
okay.
just repeat real quickly that instead of repeating what you said, the scenarios I gave is an exercise, an attempt to help people see they are in fact appealing to various moral values and duties.
Yes.
We do it instinctively. That's the point of the scenario. It's not to demonstrate we will always know to do the right thing because we know the consequence. It's just to try to point out, because most people, in my experience, do not think about this ever. They just make decisions all the time and don't realize why they chose that or the other.
But the scenario had a consequence.
It did have a
So
consequence.
You're basing the response on a consequence.
We're basing it based on the consequence. Kinda, but not really. Not really, because it's based on the moral value. It's based on the moral value, or the duty means putting that value into practice. Which key do you push on the keyboard? A deontologist says, for example, honest. Let's say, for example, I said, I think the weight of honesty is absolute or prima facie. It's really high. I'm an honest person. Because that rule is that important. And then someone says, let's assume for a second someone had medicine and you're going to kill your family. Do you lie? No, I don't lie. It had to be extreme case where you lied. And they say, is there any other moral value ever that would make you trump that line? And most people say, oh, okay, maybe preserving human life. I might lie. I might. But that's a close second. I put it right on top second. Would you hurt the person? Absolutely not. Why is that? Because it won't do it, or killing. So that's based on what they think is so valuable. And that's a deontologist would say that's based on your rules. For example, if you really, really value the Ten Commandments, the Decalogue, if that's your chief value, all your decisions, make sure you obey those rules. If it's the love commandment, you'll pick those rules and say, that's it. A consequentialist doesn't look at the rules, they look at the outcome. So the weight of rules don't matter that much. What matters is the consequence, what's going to happen in the future. And that's a different issue. So the scenario is just to help us be aware that we all have moral values and duties. I hope that helps. Any questions or comments about that? So it'd be interesting, just for your own fun's sake, maybe do it with your spouse or a friend or something and say, list out your moral values and duties. How would you rank them? And don't think of the scenario is just to help you think we have them, but just blindly. When I go through life, these are absolutes. For example, do any of y'all have any absolutes at all? That is to say, you would die. They would kill you before you did it. You have the moral duty, whatever. Do you even have an absolute? For example, in Judaism, I said they won't ever commit incest, they won't idolatry, and they won't murder. If it had a gun to your head and said, you're just going to shoot me, I'm not going to do it. What if the Nazi said, I want you to have sex with your sister right now? They're going to say, kill me. You need to go murder your son. Kill me. Does that make sense? Worship this other false god. Nope, you're going to kill me. It's an absolute, not going to happen. I want to die first. Yeah.
I wouldn't want.
Okay, so your absolute would be, I'll say loyalty. Can I say loyal to Jesus?
Yeah.
All right, good. So for you, loyalty to Jesus is an absolute. You won't break that no matter what. You conceivably could murder, rape, lie, steal, depending on the scenario, but you won't deny Jesus.
Well, I'd hope to not do those other things either, but yeah.
Not hope not to do them correct. The issue is, would you ever not break them? And what I hear you saying is, is that the only absolute, or is there any more absolutes you put, or is that just?
Oh, I thought we were just supposed to do the top one. That would be my top.
Well, absolute. You can have 50 absolutes if you want them. Everything could be absolute. That's going to be an odd scenario, but you'd be paralyzed, I think, of what to do. Most people only have one or two or three or four of them, usually. Good. Thank you. Anybody else have any absolutes? So yours is preservation of human life, right, Cassie? Preservation of human life? To preserve them?
Yeah.
That it's conceivable to do anything else. I'd break every other moral law, depending on the scenario, but I would not ever do anything. But for yours, it was preserve my family's life. What about the preservation of human life? That's like, I will not murder.
I just, you're up here, I'm down here on the table.
Well,
I'm telling you, but I just follow Jesus in my simplicity.
So Christ's absolute authority.
I appreciate it, but it's not about me. So I hear you saying is following Christ covers everything. And so he'll tell us what to do.
I think he does. He wants us to do the right thing.
He wants us to do the right thing.
The right thing is
Mhm.
what he would do himself.
And the right thing is what he would do himself. Okay. So in this understanding of prescriptive ethics, you would say Jesus will give us the weight of the rule in the moment.
Yes. Because he wants us to do what he would do.
And that's a form of what's called situational ethics. That is, but you would say what the Holy Spirit spin. The Holy Spirit will tell us in the situation which rule is weightier than the others. So when we're being sincere and put His will for our own, He will tell us.
Gotta be real.
Gotcha. So your view is these are all moral values, but Jesus will tell us in the moment which one to pick. Okay, thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
It's been a long time, and I may not have this right.
Yeah, in Columbine, that's right. One person there said, stand up if you're a Christian. She stood up and you believe in Jesus or whatever, follow Jesus, and she got killed. That's right. For her, at least one of the absolutes is you do not deny Jesus. You don't deny claiming to be a Christian. Yeah. It's funny. I don't know if I would have done that.
I mean, if you
For-
think about it, she was like, what, 14?
For various reasons. I could argue.
I mean, she was
Yeah.
a teenager, and she was like, wow, and I look at that and I'm like, wow, I think of, Tom and the kids, and
Mm-hmm.
That guy said that to her, though, because she was under the desk praying when he was
Yeah.
walking up on her.
But you're bringing up,
but I mean, would I?
right, would I stand up because I'm thinking about my family.
Would I think of my family first?
Right.
And then I want to still be here with them.
Yeah. And then another response to that is an absolute. See, this is what people go, and we're almost done. But you could also respond, should a lunatic get that authority over my life in that moment?
No.
That's the question. Because some might argue, and I would, exegetically speaking, when Jesus speaks about coming before councils, it's before governments. That is, there's a public declaration of whether or not you will rescind the faith. And so one wonders if those scenarios fit the context of which Jesus speaks and Paul faced. But maybe it is. But yeah,
It would
but
be,
well, I'm going to write. In fact,
put Christ before family, too.
put Christ before family. Well, maybe. But see, if you're a deontologist, they would say Christ before family. They'd say, yeah, except I think Christ wants me to preserve my own human life to help my family.
But not by denying him.
But not by denying him. That's your view. So other Christians would say you're putting that weight of the rule higher than I would. Christians do this. So that's, I was going to say, my response to your comment, which I appreciate about Christ being overall and he'll tell us in the situation. I think in general that's true, and I sure hope that's true, but a lot of well-intended, spirit-filled Christians disagree on the various weights of the rules. And so because of that, I'm a little shaky to always say he will always tell us, or I'm much more shaky to say we will always apprehend what he's telling us, and that's different. I think our antenna is messed up more than he's not telling us the right thing. But yes, ma'am, and we'll wrap up. Daniel resolved what he would say, and that's what we have to do.
I will serve the God.
I will
I will serve my God. And
So the older you get, the more you get to the place, I want to be convinced that I'm not going to deny Christ. Yeah. See, in the ancient world, good for you. Good. Because in the ancient world, most people didn't just deny Christ. They denied him to worship other gods. It was the worship of other gods that was the offense.
Okay, so-
That's idolatry.
so if ISIS is standing here and saying, I'm going to behead you if you don't deny Christ and accept
Right.
Muhammad.
So if ISIS, except Muhammad, if ISIS did that, that's right. So that's idolatry. That's changing.
That's a different thing.
Certain deontologists will say, you absolutely lie because you need to preserve your human life. And then if you're around, consequential will say, you can have a greater effect for more generations. And you don't mean that. You're lying to them. You're not lying to God. You know your heart and mind is. You can stay a Christian all you want. You're just lying to lunatic, evil people.
Still don't think you should.
I don't think so.
Okay. That's what some would argue. Others would say, I don't think so. Nope, because you shouldn't even lie about it or even want to lie about it. You just tell the truth. That moral value. Huh?
You tell the truth and die.
You tell the truth and die. In that sense, they would say that.
But that's what Paul said, if I live, fine.
Yeah.
If I die, great.
If I live, fine, die, great. That's right, you did that. So yeah, Philippians 1:21, it says, to live as Christ, to die as gain. Yeah, I'm not converting. I won't. But that's because, that's a long story.
Where's
But
that at in Philippians?
Philippians 1:21 is what I just quoted. To live as Christ, to die as gain. But good, okay, well, there's your values and rules. Please don't go steal anything right now or kill anybody. Okay, I'm just kidding. But look, hopefully, as you know, I'm just a joke. All right, we do this. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, some of your teeth are right there. Yeah. So now I'm walking like this all the time. Good. Okay. So you can just, if I can do a quick wrap up, we will look at biblical examples of this kind of deontological ethic. Biblical examples in the Old and New Testament. Later on, after we do the major three systems, we'll come back and look at particular examples. I was going to do it in each time, but I think I'm going to do that later on, and then it'll remind you of a summary. Oh yeah, I remember talking about that. So right now we're not going to look at the biblical examples. We will later on, but I got to give you little hints like the Decalogue or Ten Commandments. There's certain rules like that, but later on we'll look at examples, all in the Old New Testament of that. And the second thing, which follows naturally and logically, which means you can be a Christian. There are many Christian deontologists. That means a Christian who believes that, how do you know what the right thing to do is? They would say, it depends on the rules. You might say, which rules? And if they know what they're talking about, they would say, I tell you exactly which rules I follow. You say, what do they mean? They say, I'll tell you exactly what those rules mean. They say, well, how do you categorize the weight? I got a list right here. It's right in my pocket. And I can tell you exactly what it is. And I'm being a little facetious, but that's what deontologists do. And Christian ones do. And they make arguments for all these things. And they'll say, well, how do you choose that one or that one? They'll say, because this value is more important than the other one. And why? Because Jesus said it here. He didn't say that one. And it's based on that. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, I've noticed you haven't yet.
You hadn't talked about what feels right in your gut. That's right.
Ever get to that?
Me? Yes, I will. Under virtue ethics. Yeah, you might say that's right. Rule-based deontology is not legalism, but it's also not following your gut. It's based on that moral rule that you follow based on the weight of the rule.
Well, are these men, and
Are men who think of this inspired by God?
Sometimes I think they just sit around and have too much free. If they're out working in the field and somebody earning and digging up potatoes, they wouldn't have time to think of all this stuff. Would be just as well off.
Do you mean do moral philosophers? Do they sit around, or do you mean
scholars and all that,
Oh, scholars not well. There are actually women who think about these things too.
Well, women.
Yeah. So men and women think about this, and they do have a lot of time on their hand. They're paid to do it. They write all kinds of literature. It's as old as ancient literature itself, all the way back to Aristotle, Plato. They've been asked these exact same questions. Are they inspired by God? Brother, that's a good...
Is that just men's wisdom?
Paul says it to the Corinthians, but he has a specific issue when he says it's foolishness to men. It's like the gospel, not...
I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No.
Just think about these things.
Absolutely. So I can't answer the question whether or not they are inspired. But I can say, of course you can be a Christian and be a deontologist because the Bible's full of rules. It's full of it. And later on, like I say, I want to come back and show you tons of them, like the Ten Commandments. If you think that is the ultimate value, those are rules, those are duties that we're supposed, some would say, we're supposed to follow them.
And they're all embodied in Christ in the new covenant. All the law is embodied in Christ. Now He is the law.
And that's that's an interpretation that Jesus embodies all that. All I'm saying is, it's the Bible. They would say it's in the Bible, and I'm inspired because I care about these duties. And that's why I'm trying to, and I'll finish on this. That's why I started out. This is not legalism. If a person thinks following the rules saves you, you're a legalist. This is not legalism in practice. This is deontological ethics, which is, how do I know what the right thing to do is? A Christian deontologist are going to say, why do I care about this? Because it's good. These are good things. I want to do the right thing. And so they really struggle with doing the right thing. And so we ask the question, how do you know what the right thing to do? A deontologist is going to say, you pick a rule system and you follow it.
But who dictates the rule system you pick? I mean,
You get to choose that.
Our own judgment.
That's why people debate it. Let me pause and pray.
Our own judgment is.
Let me say a prayer for us. Thank you, God, so much for being the source of all moral duties and having a perfect moral character from which flows all of your commandments. God, those of us who are following you and want to do the right thing, we do need your wisdom. And the Bible is full of duties and commandments, not in an effort to, quote unquote, save us or earn some kind of favor with you for salvation, but instead help us do the right thing because it is the right thing. And we want to please you and all those things that come along, but help us know what the right thing is and how to do it. And as we continue to reflect upon these different ethical systems, all of which are represented in the biblical text, help us sort this out as best as we can. Give us your wisdom, just as John said. We want your wisdom in all situations. really, Holy Spirit, in our daily lives and conversations with people at work, at home, over the dinner table, what we buy in the grocery store, these ethical decisions we make all the time. Please, give us the courage to ask you what you want us to do, and give us the courage to do it. Knowing we have your mercy when we fail, but help us do the right thing. And God, we love you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for allowing us the privilege of loving our neighbor as ourselves. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.